Hi, and welcome to another Blueprint tutorial. I'm Jenny, and I'm going to guide you through an introduction to reasonable adjustment within the vet sector. Firstly, we need to ask, what is reasonable adjustment? Reasonable adjustment is actually a term that comes out of the anti-discrimination legislation. And for all vet trainers and assessors, it refers to a measure or action taken by an education provider to enable learners with a disability to participate in education and training on the same basis as learners without a disability. Reasonable adjustment is not about watering down the requirements of the unit. It's not about exempting students out of particular activities that need to be completed to be deemed competent. There are clear guidelines in the Standards for Registered Training Organisations, the Disability Discrimination Act, and the Disability Standards for Education. These documents can be referred to when you need to find out more about providing services for students who have a disability. Nearly 1 in 5 Australians have a disability. The definition of a disability under legislation is quite broad. It includes physical and learning disabilities, chronic medical conditions, or mental illness. People with disabilities have a right to access and participate in education and training. Under the standards for RTOs 2015, the RTO needs to determine the support needs of students and provide access to educational and support services as necessary, so that students can meet the requirements of the course they are enrolled in. To be able to meet this standard, we need to think about one of the principles of assessment, which is fairness. To ensure that assessment is fair, we are able to provide reasonable adjustments. Think about the learner's needs. It could be writing, reading, hearing, communicating with others or getting ideas across, moving or manipulating objects, paying attention, staying on track, sitting for long periods of time, moving around the learning environment, remembering and retaining information, and dealing with frustration. One thing that's really important is that we talk to the student about their needs. That's probably the first place to start. Examples of support can include study support and study skills programs, language literacy and numeracy programs, or referrals to these programs, providing equipment, resources and/or programs to increase access for learners with disabilities and other learners in accordance with access and equity principles. Using trained support staff, including specialist teachers, note takers and interpreters. Providing flexible scheduling and delivery of training and assessment, and the provision of learning materials in alternative formats. The RTO also needs to provide advice and information to the students. This is normally done prior to enrolment. We talk about the suitability of the course, any special physical or cultural requirements for the course, reasonable adjustments that can be made, and support that is available. But let's put it into action. So reasonable adjustment support may include extra time, recording lectures, providing a separate space away from the distractions of the busy classroom, note-taking assistants, using screen readers and other adaptive technology for people who are vision impaired, scribes, providing lecture notes, ensuring wheelchair access, and enlarging the font size of printed material. Don't forget, it's all about fairness. Where can we find more information so that within your RTO you can implement reasonable adjustment strategies? There are many websites that will help you implement reasonable adjustment for your students. Ideally, do a search on the internet on the words reasonable adjustment. ASQA and state training authorities all have fact sheets available that can help you. The Australian Disability Clearinghouse on Education and Training is a fantastic resource, and you can go to this website and search for ideas to help you implement reasonable adjustment for your students with a disability. Remember, under the Disability Standards for Education 2005, education providers must make reasonable adjustments for people with disability to the maximum extent that those adjustments do not cause that provider unjustifiable hardship. What does that mean? It means if it's going to be costly to implement the reasonable adjustments for your student, then you have the ability as a training provider to say we are not the right provider. While reasonable adjustment and unjustifiable hardship are different concepts and involve different considerations, they both seek to strike a balance between the interests of the education providers and the interests of the learners with or without a disability. One of the most important words to remember when talking about reasonable adjustment is the inherent requirements. An adjustment is considered unreasonable if it erodes the inherent requirements of the unit. For instance, if the unit requires a student to participate in 5 service shifts for hospitality, and these shifts are part of the assessment, an unreasonable adjustment would be to decrease the requirements for the shifts. If a unit of competency must be assessed in the workplace, for instance in a childcare unit or a community services unit, then it is unreasonable to allow the student to be assessed in a classroom setting. Both of these examples are examples of the inherent requirements of the unit being eroded. So who can help? If you need advice or clarification about any of the aspects of reasonable adjustment, then you need to talk to specialist staff and relevant industry reference committees and skills service organisations who are the people who have put your training packages together. So don't forget, in the first instance, talk to your RTO manager and your compliance team. Talk to the specialist staff within your training environment. And then extend out into the networks of training organisations and seek assistance from others. And most importantly, talk to your students. Ask your student about the support they have previously received. Ask about the adaptive technology that they use. This may be your opportunity to learn more about adaptive technology. For instance, screen readers such as JAWS. Talk to the disability support teams that exist either within the education environment that you work in or in a broader scheme of things. The state training authorities will have disability support services that are available. Talk to the apprenticeship services regarding additional support that may be available for trainees and apprentices. And continue your professional reading. Reasonable adjustment works. It may be that in your workshop the bench needs to be lowered for the worker who is confined to a wheelchair. It may be that the office worker who's confined to a wheelchair cannot reach the top filing cabinet drawer. And therefore plan so that they're not limited by the equipment that's in the office. Other examples will include people who are working in the automotive industry. There may be a need to adjust the way that they hold and use equipment. Adaptive technology exists particularly for education, but you will find by talking to your students and asking them what they use in their daily life that they're also using technology that can help them. So what works at home can work in education. And most importantly, don't be afraid of political correctness. The only way you can learn more about the support that your students need is by asking them, what do you need? So reasonable adjustment is about ensuring that a student with a disability has the ability to be able to do the assessment just like everybody else. Don't forget, it's all about being competent. So the student has to be able to demonstrate competency in the unit that they are completing. Thanks for watching. Take the time to watch our Blueprint series of tutorials and whiteboard explainers. These will all help you with your course. And don't forget, we're here to help. Give us a call anytime. Thank you.